Okay, we dealt with this stuff when we were graphing trigonometric functions. That's a really fun word to say, trigonometric. Makes you sound like you got mad flow. Remind me never to say that again. Okay, let's go ahead and get some of the basic ones out of the way. We'll start with finding what the amplitude is. The amplitude is always the number in the front, with a couple exceptions. It's 3 in this case. The amplitude is 3. If we were to graph it, which it does not ask us to do, but if we were to graph it, then we would, from the middle, we'd go up 3 and down 3. Okay, the period, we're going to go based on the assumption that this is in degrees. So the period is always going to be 360 divided by that number right there. So 180 degree period. Basically, within 180 degrees, we would graph a complete cycle. The horizontal shift is this one. We're kind of putting these in order. The horizontal shift is here. And we're going to use the opposite of that number. So it's negative 90. So if we were to graph it, instead of starting centered at the y-axis, we would shift it to the left 90 degrees. Or shift it back 90 on the x-axis, which represents 90 degrees. The vertical, 0. Okay, the first one was relatively basic. So I'm going to use that kind of as a template for some of the other ones. I'm going to use sine instead of cosine when I write this out. But f of x is going to be equal to a sine b x plus c plus d. Okay, so I'm going to use this to kind of explain it, and then we'll go through the other two. If you want to write this over on the side, that would be fine. So in this case, a is the amplitude. Well, let's write it a different way. Let's say that the amplitude is A. The period is going to be 360 divided by B. Okay, let me warn you also, if we're dealing with radians, it would be 2 pi over B. Now, how do you know? Well, you'll probably see it within the context of the problem. Most of the time it's in degrees. However, if you have a hard time telling between 360 and 2 pi, keep in mind, that's a whole circle. Turn a whole circle, that's 360. And 2 pi is also the equivalent of that. Okay. The horizontal shift. Many math books are going to write this differently, but I'm doing it this way just so you can see the importance of the sign. The horizontal shift is the opposite of that sign. Again, if you're going to look this up in a math book or if you look it up online, probably it may use a different letter, first of all. Second of all, they may have a negative right here, which would make that positive. Basically, it's the opposite sign. So, opposite sign of that. The vertical shift is going to be same signs, outside the parentheses. When you're inside parentheses and you're graphing something, most of the time, you're going to be using the opposite sign. So now let's do the other two based on that. Now this next one's going to get a little bit crazy in just a second. It's okay. I deal with crazy every day. I teach high school. Amplitude is 1. Understood 1. Period. Okay, there's a 2 there. Don't just put 2 now. It's 360 divided by B. Or if it was radians, it would be 2 pi. So it's 360 divided by 2, so we have a 180 degree period. So if we were to graph it, the entire cycle would happen within 180 degrees. The horizontal, I know you're about to put negative 90. I want to warn you about this. I really want to warn you about this. Let's come up here and rewrite this thing. I want you to notice the difference between these two. I want you to notice the parentheses that are down here as well. This 90 needs to be separate from this number right here. We need to factor out a 2. Let's kind of go with a factoring out sort of idea. Let me show you. 2, and then we're going to put some parentheses. And then we're going to treat it like we're factoring out this 2. So x plus 45. Basically, we just divided 90 by 2, and then plus 4. Okay, we just factored within those parentheses. And now this and this look alike. So the horizontal shift is negative 45. You may not have seen that before, but I just wanted to show you in case you saw it, because you may see it either way on the final exam. The vertical shift is positive 4. Okay. So on this packet, as you go through this packet, I want you to be aware of which way it's written, whether it's written as if the B value, like down here, was factored out. In that case, you can just change that sign and go with it. Or if it was inside the parentheses, because you might see it either way. If it is inside, you need to treat it like that. You need to factor out that 2. So change it. Sorry, tongue got tied. Change it. Okay, the amplitude in this case is 2. Now, you might have put negative 2, but it's 2. Okay, the negative is just going to determine the direction at which you start graphing. We're not graphing this, though. We're just determining the amplitude. The period is 360 divided by 1/2. Now, let's think about this for a second. Don't panic when you see a fraction in a fraction. It's not going to kill you. This kind of makes sense if you think about it. First of all, if you're going to cheat and use your calculator, which you can do it in your head, I do suggest you put that in parentheses. Secondly, though, let's think about it. If I had $360, how many half dollars do I have? I can buy a Coke for half a dollar, 50 cents. And I have $360, I can buy 720 Cokes. That's a lot of sugar. I don't need it. I suggest you drink water. Okay, horizontal shift. There's an understood plus 0 in here, so all this explanation that I went through with these two doesn't really apply because there's an understood 0. Vertical shift, positive 1.